Brock Purdy. Everybody keeps making it out like Brock Purdy is just an average quarterback and he's benefiting from Kyle Shanahan and having a great team around him, a Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, CMC, and a fantastic defense. But I think Brock Purdy is way better than what a lot of people in the media are giving him credit for. People are just viewing Brock Purdy as a great story. Every week, they keep telling you this isn't going to last. They've been saying it for the last couple weeks now. The last couple of months, we've been hearing, this Brock Purdy thing is going to end up derailing eventually. And it still hasn't. He still hasn't lost as a starting quarterback for the 49ers. And you want to know what's messed up? This is what's messed up. If Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, or he leads the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl win, people are still not going to give him the credit he deserves. They're going to say, well, Brock Purdy just proves that you can win with an average quarterback. You don't need a great quarterback to win as long as you have a great team around him, and people aren't going to give Brock Purdy that credit. People are just going to make it seem like he's just an average quarterback and he has no great traits that he brings to the table that elevates the 49ers offense. His mobility, the fact that he is a elite distributor of the football. This guy has some game. I watched a lot of Brock Purdy games when he was at Iowa State because I'm a big fan of Big 12 football. So if you go back and you watch my quarterback rankings for last year, I think I had Brock Purdy as like my 9th or 10th best quarterback coming out. And I said that one thing that he did incredibly well was that he was accurate inside of the numbers. And on top of that, he has better athleticism than what a lot of people gave him credit for. He does have the tendency to be streaky at times. If he starts the game out slow, he could potentially be in for a rough game. But if he starts the game out hot, he could be in for a good performance. That was my analysis on Brock Purdy when he was coming out of Iowa State. And that kind of has translated well with how he's been so far with the 49ers. Sometimes he can have moments during the game where he's just off. We saw that the first quarter against Seattle. Even against Dallas, it took him a while to get going. But Brock Purdy, he has the potential to be a really good quarterback. You see, you don't go from Mr. Irrelevant to leading a team to the NFC Conference Championship all because you have a great team around you. There has been plenty of quarterbacks, backups, who've had great situations and sucked. Okay? I watched Mike Tomlin still find a way to keep the Steelers in playoff contention a couple of years ago when Big Ben got his elbow injured. He was still finding ways to win games with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. Brock Purdy is better than any of those guys. Brock Purdy, regardless how you guys feel about him, right now, he's better than a handful of quarterbacks in the league right now. Not to mention, he's better than Trey Lance, the guy who the 49ers traded up so much to get. And yet, people still trying to make excuses for why Trey Lance should get an opportunity. People are making excuses for Trey Lance. You shouldn't be making no excuses for Trey Lance because there's no excuse for Trey Lance that you couldn't make for Brock Purdy. All the odds were stacked against Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, to be in this situation, do you know what he had to endure? Did you know the kind of work that he had to put in to get to this situation? So for all you guys who want to make excuses for Trey Lance, remember that Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft. Remember that Brock Purdy went into training camp, the 4th string quarterback. Remember that Brock Purdy had to go into that game against the Miami Dolphins having no chemistry, having no practice time with the first team offense. Remember that. Remember that Trey Lance the whole entire offseason was practicing with the first team and everybody had cast out Jimmy Garoppolo because many people in the 49ers thought that Trey Lance was the guy. And it's funny that we still don't know what Trey Lance is and what the 49ers have in Trey Lance in the few games that he's played, but yet we've had a pretty good sample size from Brock Purdy. And yet people still question, is he just a great story? It's the same stuff with Stetson Bennett at Georgia. Stetson Bennett went through the same stuff. During his time in Georgia, people didn't even want him starting because they felt JT Daniels was the better quarterback. And when Georgia won that first national championship, you know what people said? Oh, Stetson Bennett, he did good, but he benefited from having a great team around him. And people still knock Stetson Bennett for that, even after repeating and going back to back. So even if Brock Purdy leads the 49ers to a Super Bowl win, people are still never going to give Brock Purdy his flowers. And it's really sad that people lock on to where somebody was drafted, and where somebody was drafted is where people set the bar for you. If you're a 7th round pick, people would never expect you to be more than an average quarterback, even if you overplay those expectations. Brock Purdy has been more than just a game manager this year. The dude also has pretty good arm talent. People confuse arm strength with arm talent. They're not the same. Arm strength is how far you can throw the football with how much velocity you can put on it. Arm talent is how can you throw the football from different angles, from different parts of the field? Can you contort your arm when you throw the football? Can you change your arm angles? That's arm talent. Brock Purdy has pretty good arm talent. Not to mention, he has really high football IQ. And what really blows me is the whole narrative that people like to use. Oh, this offseason, defensive coordinators are going to be watching film. They're going to figure him out. That's one of the dumbest, oldest BS narratives when it comes to why a quarterback will end up regressing, or why a quarterback will end up coming back down to earth. So what if other defensive coordinators are watching film and studying Brock Purdy? So you think that Brock Purdy isn't studying film? You think that Brock Purdy's just going to stay stagnant? You think that Brock Purdy can improve and he can't get better? So these defensive coordinators are the only people who watch film? They're the only people who improve? I really don't understand why people continue to not give Brock Purdy his respects. Yes, I said that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to beat the 49ers this week because they were going up against Brock Purdy. He is a rookie quarterback, but I don't say that as a knock on me not believing in Brock Purdy. I don't say that to say Brock Purdy isn't good. I just say that because he's a rookie going against the Philadelphia freaking Eagles. They're talented on almost every position, offense and defense. They're stacked. They're loaded. They have great depth. They have 70 sacks on the year. That's 15 more than any other team from this season. They have one of the best pass rushes in the history of the league. So, of course, I'm going to pick Philadelphia over Brock Purdy. I like the odds of that defense versus a rookie quarterback. Philadelphia has the number one pass defense. That doesn't mean that Brock Purdy can't be the franchise guy for the 49ers. As a matter of fact, it's just going to be a game where I just look at it and say, you know what? It was it. I expected that to happen. But you know, a lot of people in the media, if the Philadelphia Eagles beat the 49ers, they're going to use that to say, oh, well, Brock Purdy, he was what we initially thought he was. Like, no. And it's going to be so unfair because even if the 49ers make it to the Super Bowl and they lose, they're going to say, yeah, they lost that Super Bowl because they had Brock Purdy. He isn't the guy. You get what I'm saying? Like, Brock Purdy would never win in this situation unless he goes out and he wins 3-4 Super Bowls and he wins a couple of MVP awards. It really blows me how people don't want to give Brock Purdy the proper respects. People lock on to these where people were drafted at. Like, bruh, Trey Lance, give it up. Trey Lance isn't better than Brock Purdy, people. That doesn't mean Trey Lance can never be a good quarterback, but it's pretty obvious who the best quarterback is right now. Stop making excuses for guys just because where they were drafted. I'm glad a lot of you guys aren't head coaches, because if y'all were head coaches, y'all wouldn't last a damn day. You would lose the locker room as soon as you step in it. You want to know why? Because a lot of you guys politic. You guys in situations like this, Instead of starting the better quarterback like Brock Purdy, you would just start the guy who you drafted higher because he has more potential. And that's how you lose the locker room, when you politic. Players hate that shit. They hate when people start somebody based off where they were drafted or how much money they're making instead of starting the guy who's the better player. That's how you lose a locker room. When it comes to Brock Purdy, he's more than just a great story. This dude is good. He has some game. There's nothing that you can tell me Jimmy G can do that Brock Purdy can't. But I can tell you a lot of things that Brock Purdy can do that Jimmy G can't, such as extend plays, be willing to pick up yards with his legs. He makes this offense better. I said it a couple of months ago, and I'm still going to say it again. Brock Purdy makes the 49ers offense better. Kyle Shanahan has a lot of confidence when he calls plays with Brock Purdy. Yeah, he had to tone it down a little. You're playing the Dallas freaking Cowboys. You still have to understand that you have a rookie quarterback and you want to minimize putting him in situations where he can turn the football over. So for Kyle Shanahan, yes, he deserves a lot of credit for Brock Purdy's success. Yes, Brock Purdy having a great situation around him. Definitely, he's benefited from that. But let's stop acting like this dude doesn't have any game. This isn't a scrub. And I promise y'all, Brock Purdy is going to prove that he can be the franchise guy for San Francisco moving forward. You don't just go from Mr. Irrelevant to this without having something different about you. This isn't normal. You can see the normal backup quarterbacks, a Gardner Minshew, or a Cooper Rush. Those guys show you why they're backups, or why they're only just viewed as bridge stop quarterbacks, or why they're just viewed as bottom tier starters. Brock Purdy hasn't showed you anything that indicates he's one of those guys. The dude rises to the occasion. The dude gets it done. We said that he couldn't get it done against Dallas, and he got it done. We questioned his ability to be able to lead San Francisco to a win against that defense, and he got it done. And if he gets it done against Philadelphia, then what are you going to say? You're still going to use the narrative, oh, well, if he loses the Super Bowl, it's going to be because he just wasn't good enough. No. There's never been a rookie QB to win a Super Bowl. If Brock Purdy leads the 49ers to a Super Bowl win, he would have made history. I can't recall if there has ever been a rookie quarterback to lead his team to a Super Bowl. But if he does that, and you're still downing Brock Purdy, and you're still just saying that he's going to crash back down to reality, then you're just kind of hating. Or you're just a little bit naive. Or you're a novice. It doesn't take you long to figure out if a guy can play or can't play. How many of you guys ever played middle school football or high school football? So you guys know that if you went to a big school that had a lot of kids, you had to have tryouts and you had to have roster cuts because you could only give out so many jerseys on JV and varsity that everybody couldn't make the team. So during tryouts, when everybody's going through drills, it doesn't take you long to figure out the guys who can play and the guys who can't play even without pads. And with the San Francisco 49ers, it shouldn't really be taking a lot of you guys to realize that, hey, Brock Purdy, he can play. They still haven't lost the game with him as a starting quarterback. And we're acting like they just played bum teams. He led them to a win in the playoffs. And if he leads them to the Super Bowl, that means he will have more playoff wins than Lamar Jackson and a handful of other quarterbacks who we perceive to be better than Brock Purdy. Hell, at least give the guy the benefit of the doubt and say he's a top 12 quarterback or a top 13 quarterback. Heck, let's be honest. How many of you guys right now raise your hand if you would take Brock Purdy over Kirk Cousins? Raise your hand if you would take Brock Purdy over Dak Prescott. And I'm basing this based on what you've seen from Brock Purdy. Don't give me futuristic wise. I'm talking about right now, based off the last games that you've seen from Brock Purdy versus the last games that you've seen from Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. Who would you take based on that? I would be taking Brock Purdy. This dude is more than just a great story. This is the kind of player that with this mindset and this mentality, he goes from Mr. Irrelevant to a really good player. He had no practice time at all with this first string offense when he entered the game against Miami. And he came out there and he was in full control. He was composed. It never really looks like Brock Purdy gets rattled. It's just something really different about Brock Purdy. And I'm not somebody who really comes on here and really makes strong, bold claims like this. But I really feel like there's something different about Brock Purdy. And I don't think enough people are really realizing it because you're just so stuck on the fact that he was the last pick of the draft and he was Mr. Irrelevant that it kind of blinds you from seeing how talented this guy is. Yes, there are really good quarterbacks who can be super talented who end up going undrafted. Kurt Warner, Tony Romo. You don't need to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes to be a great quarterback. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, I love those players, but they have kind of hurt the perception on how people perceive quarterbacks. Now, people think that if you don't have a crazy arm like a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, or you don't have elite athleticism like Lamar Jackson, people think you're a scrub quarterback and you can't win, and that's not true. Every quarterback is not built the same. Yes, to be a successful quarterback, you have to have common intangibles and common traits. But at the same time, every quarterback has different skill sets that can allow them to be successful in certain situations. If Lamar Jackson didn't go to Baltimore, he ended up with the Cleveland Browns, do you guys think he would have been the same quarterback he is today? If he would have went to a dysfunctional franchise like the New York Jets, do you guys think he would have ever been as good now as what he would have been on the Jets? It's a lot of different factors that go into determining the success of a quarterback. But a good quarterback isn't just a guy who has an elite arm. Sometimes it's a guy who just has elite understanding of the game. Joe Burrow said it perfectly. He said, I may not be talented at one thing or the most talented at one thing, but I'm damn sure going to be top 3 out of everything else. I'd rather have a quarterback that's solid in everything than just good in certain areas. Brock Purdy is a solid quarterback, and people think just because he's not a Justin Herbert or anything like that, he's not a good quarterback. There are other things that make you a good quarterback than just elite physical intangibles. Okay, you can be a good quarterback from being an elite distributor of the football, which is what Brock Purdy is. You can be an elite quarterback because you get the ball out fast and you know how to diagnose and dissect defenses fast at an elite level. You can be an elite quarterback because you have good elusiveness. You know how to extend plays. You know how to break out the sacks. You know how to be wiggly. People think just because Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft, he's just capped at this certain point. No, there's no cap on anybody. That whole potential bull crap, I never really understood it. You get what I'm saying? Yes, somebody may have elite traits or elite physical qualities about them that may help elevate them to being a top 5 quarterback. But there has been plenty of top 5, top 10 quarterbacks who weren't the most physically gifted. And the best quarterbacks in this game sometimes are the ones who lack in those Justin Herbert or Josh Allen or Mahomes-like qualities. Drew Brees didn't have the strongest arm, but he had a lead understanding of the game, and he probably is the most accurate quarterback in the history of the NFL. Brock Purdy, give this man his roses. Regardless of what happens, if they lose to Philadelphia or if they win the Super Bowl or whatnot, Brock Purdy deserves a little bit more credit. This guy is good. The 49ers have something in Brock Purdy.